The screen door slammed behind us like a gunshot in the still Texas night, shattering the fragile peace of Ridge Valley. Dust devils swirled in our wake as Wyatt yanked me toward the rusted pickup truck, his fingers digging into my wrist with a grip that screamed survival. "Hurry before they come back," he whispered, his voice cracking like dry earth under boot heels, eyes darting to the shadows where his father's silhouette still loomed in the porch light. I froze for half a heartbeat, the weight of his words crashing over me like a rogue wave, pulling me under into the unknown we'd both been circling for months. But in that suspended moment, with the cicadas screaming their frantic chorus, I saw it all. The bruises blooming under his flannel shirt, the map of secrets we'd drawn in stolen touches, and the fire in his gaze that said this was our only shot at breathing free. Without a word, I nodded, heart slamming against my ribs, and we dove into the cab, tires spinning gravel into the stars as we fled the ghosts of who we'd been. The engine roared to life under Wyatt's hands, a beast of a Ford that had seen better days but knew these backroads like the veins in his calloused palms. Ridge Valley wasn't much. A cluster of sagging porches and sun-bleached clapboard houses hugging the endless flatlands of West Texas, where the horizon mocked you with its promise of escape that never quite arrived. We'd grown up here, me in the trailer park on the edge of town with my mom scraping by on diner tips, Wyatt in that sprawling ranch house where the Harlan name meant land and legacy and lies buried deeper than the aquifer. Folks said the Harlans built this place from nothing after the Dust Bowl, but to me it was just a cage disguised as wide-open sky. I was Elijah Kane, 28 and still chasing the ghost of a football scholarship that fizzled out after one bad knee, and a string of bar fights I don't regret. Worked the oil rigs by day, nursed beers by night at the Rusty Spur, where the jukebox spun George Strait like a prayer against forgetting. Wyatt Harlan was the golden boy who'd stayed, 31, broad-shouldered with that easy grin that hid the storm clouds, running his daddy's cattle operation like it was the only thing keeping the devil at bay. We'd known each other since high school, orbiting like reluctant planets. Him the quarterback everyone worshipped, me the scrappy wide receiver who caught his passes and later something more dangerous. Started innocent enough, or so we told ourselves. A shared cigarette behind the bleachers after graduation, the summer heat pressing us close until his hand brushed mine and neither of us pulled away. "This don't mean nothing," he'd muttered, but his eyes said otherwise, dark and hungry under the brim of his Stetson. We kept it buried deep. Stolen glances across the feed store counter. Midnight drives down County Road 17 where we'd park and talk about everything and nothing, his head on my shoulder as the stars wheeled overhead. But Ridge Valley had eyes everywhere, and whispers traveled faster than dust on the wind. His father, Old Man Harlan, with his Bible-thumping sermons and iron-fisted grip on the family name, caught wind somehow. Maybe it was the way Wyatt's truck lingered too long in my driveway, or the bruise I sported after defending him at the Spur when some drunk ranch hand slung slurs like confetti. That night as we tore out of town, the dashboard clock glowed 2:17 a.m., the radio crackling with static-laced country tunes that felt like a eulogy for the lives we were leaving. Wyatt's knuckles whitened on the wheel, his jaw set like granite, but I could see the tremor in his hands, the way his chest heaved with breaths he was fighting to steady. "They know, Eli," he said finally, voice rough as sandpaper. "Pa found the letters. The ones you wrote me. Burned them in the fire pit, but not before he saw enough. Letters. God, those letters. I'd scribbled them on napkins and envelopes during long shifts, pouring out the ache I couldn't voice aloud. The way his laugh lit up the dark corners of my soul, how touching him felt like coming home to a place I'd never known existed. He'd hidden them in the barn loft, our secret sanctuary where hay bales muffled our confessions and the scent of earth and sweat drowned out the world. Now they were ash, and so was any pretense of safety. The truck ate up the miles, headlights carving tunnels through the black, mesquite trees blurring into skeletal sentinels. My mind raced ahead, piecing together the fragments of what came next. We'd talked about this in whispers, half dreams over lukewarm coffee, heading west to California, where the ocean crashed without judgment and cities swallowed secrets whole. But talk was cheap. This was real, the kind of real that left scorch marks. "What about your sister?" I asked, thinking of Lena, Wyatt's kid sister, all fire and freckles at 19, the only Harlan who'd ever slipped me a wink of understanding. "She'll cover," he said, but doubt flickered in his eyes. Lena had her own battles. Fresh out of community college, chafing against the town's suffocating expectations, dreaming of Austin's music scene. She'd seen us once, tangled in the barn's shadows, and instead of horror, she'd pressed a finger to her lips and vanished like smoke. Family in Ridge Valley was a double-edged blade. It cut deep, but sometimes it carved a path to freedom. Dawn crept in slow, painting the sky in bruised purples and golds as we crossed into New Mexico, the land shifting from flat fury to rugged mesas that whispered of ancient freedoms. Wyatt pulled off at a roadside diner called the Coyote Cafe, neon sign flickering like a weary heartbeat. We slid into a booth, the vinyl creaking under us, menus sticky with ghosts of grease. Coffee arrived black and bottomless, and for the first time since the slam of that door, he reached across the table, thumb tracing the back of my hand in a touch so tender it nearly undid me. "You scared?" I asked, voice low, the diner's hum of truckers and waitresses a fragile shield. His laugh was a ghost of itself, bitter and brief. "Terrified. But look at me, Eli, I'm here. With you." His eyes, that impossible blue-green like Gulf waters after a storm, held mine, and in them I saw the boy he'd been, the man he could become. We'd built this on fragments, nights when the ranch house slept and we'd meet at the old windmill, bodies pressing urgent against rusted metal, breaths mingling in promises we feared to name. Love in a place like Ridge Valley wasn't a word you claimed, it was a wound you learned to live with. The waitress, a woman with crow's feet and a name tag reading Darlene, eyed us sidelong as she refilled our mugs, her smile polite but probing. Out here, two men traveling light raised flags subtle as a noose. Wyatt ordered eggs and biscuits, forcing normalcy into his tone, but I could feel the pulse of panic beneath his skin. As we ate, he unfolded the plan we'd sketched in fevered moments. Santa Fe first, crash with a cousin of mine who'd gone straight edge and silent after coming out years back. Then onward to LA, where Wyatt could sling drinks or wrangle horses on some studio lot, and I'd chase odd jobs until something stuck. Dreams pieced from magazine clippings and late-night what-ifs. But as the sun climbed, burning away the night's chill, doubt gnawed at me. Wyatt's phone buzzed once, then twice. Ignored, silenced, tossed into the glove box like a live wire. "Pa," he muttered. "Won't stop till he drags me back." Harlan Sr. wasn't the forgiving type. He'd raised Wyatt on belts and Bible verses, molding him into the heir who carried the family shame without a crack. I'd seen the aftermath once, after a rodeo win turned sour with too much whiskey and not enough denial. Wyatt's lips split, eye swelling purple, him laughing it off as a barn mishap, while I seethed in silence. We hit the road again, I-40 stretching like a vein toward the unknown. The desert unfolded in waves of ochre and sage, cacti standing sentinel, mocking our fragility. Wyatt cranked the window, wind whipping his hair into chaos, and for a stretch we drove in the music of motion, Willie Nelson crooning low about angels and outlaws. My hand found his thigh, an anchor in the blur, and he covered it with his own, squeezing until it hurt just right. By midday, fatigue clawed at us, and we veered off toward a ghost town motel, the sign reading Desert Rose in peeling paint. The room smelled of mildew and regret, twin beds sagging under faded quilts, but it was ours, unclaimed, unjudging. We collapsed onto one, bodies aligning like puzzle pieces worn smooth by time. His mouth found mine, urgent and salt-tanged, hands roaming with the desperation of men who'd stared down the abyss. "I love you," he breathed against my neck. The words a confession and a curse, first time spoken aloud without the buffer of darkness. I pulled back, searching his face, the lines etched deeper by dawn's unforgiving light. Wyatt. It was all I could manage, throat tight with the truth of it. Love in Ridge Valley was a felony, punishable by exile or worse, but here in this nowhere limbo, it bloomed fierce and unapologetic. We moved together slow at first, then with the rhythm of release, skin on skin erasing the miles and the fears. Afterward, tangled in sheets that smelled of strangers, he traced patterns on my chest, stories and scars from rig accidents and childhood falls. "Tell me about California," he said, voice dreamy, fingers stilling. I painted it for him. Palm trees swaying against smoggy sunsets, beaches where hands could link without whispers, Cafes buzzing with lives unafraid. Venice boardwalk where skaters and street performers blurred the lines of normal, and Hollywood Hills hiding mansions built on reinvention. We'll get a place overlooking the Pacific, I murmured. Watch the waves crash like they're applauding us. He smiled, but shadows lingered in his eyes. And if they find us? They won't. Lie or prayer, I couldn't tell. But in that moment, with his weight grounding me to the earth, I believed it. Night fell heavy, stars pricking the velvet sky as we slipped out for air. The motel lot was empty save for our truck. A lone coyote's howl echoing our isolation. Wyatt leaned against the hood, lighting a smoke, the cherry glowing like a tiny defiance. "Remember the 4th of July '09? He asked, exhaling slow. How could I forget? Fireworks exploding over the fairgrounds, the crowd a sea of red, white, and blue denial. We'd snuck off to the creek bed, bottle of Jack between us, watching bursts of color reflect in the water. His kiss that night tasted of bourbon and bravery, the first crack in the dam we'd built. Yeah, I said, stepping close. Best show in town. He stubbed the cigarette, turning to me with that look, the one that stripped me bare. This is better. Then he kissed me under the neon buzz, slow and deep, the world narrowing to the press of his lips, the scrape of stubble, the promise humming between us. But promises are fragile as eggshells in Texas heat. As we climbed back into the truck at dawn, engine growling awake, my phone lit up with a text from Lena. Pause raging. Cops on the way. Run fast, brother. Love you both. Heart plummeting, I showed Wyatt, his face draining to ash. The road ahead twisted, no longer straight shot to salvation, but a gauntlet laced with pursuit. We pushed harder, crossing into Arizona by noon, the Grand Canyon looming like a wound in the earth. Wyatt's hands shook on the wheel, stories spilling out in fragments. The pressure of the ranch, the nights he'd lain awake hating the man he was supposed to be, the fleeting affairs in Amarillo that left him hollower. You were different, he said, voice breaking. Real. Made me want to fight for it. Guilt twisted in me. I dragged him into this, or maybe he dragged me, two fools chasing a horizon that might swallow us whole. Stopped at a trading post for gas and jerky. The clerk's stare lingering too long. Radio crackling with an APB for a missing rancher, possible foul play. Wyatt's description down to the truck's plates. Panic surged, hot and metallic, but we played it cool. Tipping big and peeling out before questions could form. The chase clawed closer that afternoon. Sirens faint in the rearview as we ditched the interstate for back highways snaking through Navajo lands. Red rock buttes rose like ancient guardians, dust clouds billowing in our wake. Head for Flagstaff, I urged, mapping on my phone with trembling fingers. Losing Indepines. He nodded, jaw clenched, but I saw the fracture lines. The boy who'd never disobeyed, now outlaw in his own life. We crested a ridge, valley sprawling below, and for a breath freedom teased, whined through open windows, his hand in mine, the canyon's vastness echoing our small rebellions. But as twilight bled into the sky, another text from Lena. They're close. Pa posted your bail money. Says you're confused. Don't let him win. Bail? Confusion. It hit like a sucker punch. Wyatt had been arrested once, years back, for a bar brawl that masked deeper truths. Harlan money had buried it, but grudges festered. Wyatt's eyes welled, not with tears but fury. He thinks he owns me. The words hung heavy, a declaration of war. We pressed on, the truck's engine straining up mountain passes, pines whispering secrets to the stars. Flagstaff's lights twinkled like distant hope, a college town buzzing with transience and tolerance. We found a dive bar on the outskirts, Pine Shadow Saloon, where locals nursed IPAs and ignored the world. Inside, the air thick with wood smoke and regret, we claimed stools at the end of the bar, ordering whiskeys neat. Wyatt's shoulders slumped, the weight of the day carving hollows under his eyes. What if we can't outrun this, Eli? His voice was a thread, fraying. I cupped his face, thumb brushing his cheekbone, the stubble rough under my palm. Then we stand. Together. The kiss that followed was public, defiant. A line crossed in a room full of strangers who might or might not care. A few glances flicked our way, but no outrage. Just the hum of lives intersecting briefly. That night we holed up in a cheap Airbnb. A cabin tucked in the woods, fairy lights strung like captured fireflies. Rain pattered the tin roof, a lullaby masking the thunder of what pursued. In the flicker of a single lamp, we undressed each other slow, mapping scars and sighs, bodies a language of yes against the no's of home. His touch lingered on my knee, the old injury whispering apologies for burdens I carried gladly. Love, I realized, wasn't the blaze but the steady burn, the way he held me after breath sinking with mine, dreams weaving through the dark. Morning brought clarity and crisis. News on the cabin's ancient TV. Local rancher missing, family fears abduction. Wyatt's face splashed across the screen, heroic and haunted. Harlan Sr.'s plea dripping paternal concern laced with venom. "My boy's been led astray," he drawled, eyes hard as flint. "We just want him home safe." Wyatt smashed the remote, glass shattering like his illusions. "Led astray? That's me, Eli, the devil's own detour." Laughter bubbled up, manic and mirthless, until it dissolved into sobs I gathered close. We mourned then, not just the flight but the boyhood stolen by expectations, the touches denied in church pews and locker rooms. By noon we were rolling again, toward the Utah border, salt flats shimmering like a mirage of absolution. Wyatt drove now with purpose, playlist shifting to Springsteen. Boss anthems for born-to-run souls. Stories flowed freer. His first crush on the choir boy at summer camp, suppressed until it festered. My own fumblings in Austin, anonymous and empty, until Wyatt's orbit pulled me true. But betrayal brewed, subtle as storm clouds. At a gas station in Moab, Wyatt stepped away to call Lena, voice low in the payphone booth. I watched from the truck, unease prickling, his posture too rigid, words clipped. When he returned, smile forced, I let it slide, chalking it to frayed nerves. The Arches National Park unfolded in red arches and balanced rocks, nature's defiant sculptures mirroring our teetering hope. We hiked a trail at dusk, hands brushing in the cooling air, the vastness humbling our whispers. "Marry me," Wyatt said sudden, dropping to one knee on slick rock, ringless but earnest, eyes shining with desert-reflected stars. Tears stung. I hauled him up, kissing the promise into permanence. "Yes. God, yes." Laughter echoed off stone walls, a vow etched in eternity. Yet as night deepened, his phone buzzed insistent, ignored until it rang, Lena's name flashing. He answered, face crumpling. "What?" "No, tell him no." Hung up, he wouldn't meet my eyes. Pause, offering a deal. "Drop charges if I come back alone." Alone. The word sliced deep, betrayal's first bloom. And my voice steady but inside foundations cracked. I told her to tell him hell. But doubt lingered, a shadow in his gaze. We camped under the Milky Way, fire crackling secrets, bodies entwined against the chill. Sleep came fitful, dreams of pursuit and parting. Dawn revealed tire tracks fresh in the dust, patrol cars circling closer. The push to Vegas was frantic, neon promise calling like a siren's song. Wyatt drove white-knuckled, radio scanning for updates. Search intensifies for Harlan Air. Billboards blurred, casinos, shows, reinvention for sale. We hit the strip at midnight, lights assaulting like Judgment Day in reverse. Checked into a off-strip motel, Lucky Star. Anonymity in threadbare anonymity. Exhaustion hit hard. We crashed tangled, but Wyatt tossed, murmuring in sleep. Names, please, fragments of fracture. Morning brought coffee and confession. I called him back, Eli. Last night. Said I'd think on it. Betrayal landed like a freight train, air evacuating lungs. Why? Fear. The ranch, Lena, everything. Tears tracked his cheeks, raw and ruined. But I choose you. Swear it. Heart splintered, I held him anyway. Love a stubborn weed in cracked soil. Prove it. We wandered the strip that day, zombies in paradise, fountains dancing at Bellagio, crowds oblivious to our quiet war. Wyatt bought cheap rings from a vendor, silver bands etched with infinity, slipping one on my finger in the shadow of the Eiffel Tower replica. Forever starts now, he vowed, kiss sealing the mend. But climax brewed in the heat. Evening found us at a drag show in a dive casino, Queen's lip-syncing anthems of fabulous escape. Laughter bubbled tentative, Wyatt's hand in mine public and proud. Then across the room a face from Ridge Valley, a cousin Harlan blood, eyes widening in recognition. Panic surged, we bolted, weaving through slots and sinners, out into the blistering night. The chase reignited. Cousin's call summoning reinforcements, taillights in the mirror as we fled toward the desert beyond. Wyatt floored it, truck shuddering, my hand on his knee the only steady. Highway 15 stretched black and endless, Vegas fading to pinprick. Can't go back, he gasped, voice fierce. Not without you. Sirens wailed distant, closing. At a pullout overlooking the Valley of Fire, we stopped, engines off, world holding breath. Harlan SUV crested the rise, lights piercing. Pa's voice booming from a speaker. Wyatt. Son, end this madness. He stepped out, floodlit, rifle silhouette stark. Wyatt climbed from the cab, me following, heart's thunder. Pa, it's over. I'm gone. Lies spilled then, confusion influenced devil's work. But Wyatt stood tall, voice steady. I love him. That's the truth you can't bury. Shock rippled. Pa's face twisted, rage, grief, glint of something human. You'll ruin us. No. I saved myself. Wyatt's hand found mine, grip iron vow. Cops arrived, tense standoff dissolving into words. No crime, just a family rift. Pa retreated, defeated silhouette, but not before a look at me, not hate but weary understanding. Take care of him, Kane. Dawn broke as we crossed into California, Pacific air salting our wounds. LA sprawled welcoming, freeways veins to new life. Wyatt's ring glinted, promise unbroken. Months blurred. Apartment in Echo Park, Wyatt bartending at a queer dive. Me welding at a shop overlooking the hills. Scars faded but deepened. Letters from Lena, silence from Pa, love grew roots, tender and tenacious. Lazy Sundays with coffee and kisses, hikes in Griffith Park where views stole breath. One evening, sunset gilding the Hollywood sign, Wyatt knelt again. This time with a real ring, scavenged from a pawnshop tale. Marry me proper? Yes, I whispered, pulling him into forever. We wed in a backyard ceremony, Lena flying in, rainbow flag fluttering like absolution, vows exchanged under jacaranda blooms, tears and toasts to the unknown we'd claimed. Years on, Ridge Valley, a memory softened by time, we built a life. Adopted a rescue mutt named Harlan, irony's wink, fostered kids chasing their own freedoms. Pa passed quiet, letter arriving posthumous, proud in the end. Love, we learned, isn't escape but endurance, the compassion to forgive, freedom to be, identity forged in fire. And in Wyatt's arms, under California stars, I knew we'd followed right into home.